It's a beautiful day. Look at that sunrise. The city that never sleeps is just coming up over the horizon. What a way to start the day. Let's go explore this town. Hello, Brooklyn.
But Ellis Island is a separate island, but it historically was used as immigration processing from about 1892 until 1924. During that time, we had about 12 million immigrants that passed through there, and as a result, we estimate that about 1 in 3 Americans can trace at least one ancestor that got their start in the United States passing through Ellis Island. So a lot of history, but as this is an island with a limited amount of space, residential population starts spreading out, and as you can see around us, it's a trendy-ish area to be in. Still, though, the density is relatively low. We find the majority of buildings around us are what we call walk-ups, so stairs only, typically no elevators. Some of the more affordable types of buildings that we have in New York City, these are typically commercial, retail, restaurants and such on the first floor, and then the second floor and above might be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 apartments, depending on the size of the unit. You see a lot of cars out and about, parked along the sidewalks, driving around, but majority of New Yorkers don't drive. Take public transit. Take public buses and the subway as well. As a result of that, there are many New Yorkers that don't know how to drive. And I don't just mean that in terms of they have a license and they're bad drivers, although there's plenty of that. But there's many New Yorkers that just don't have a driver's license because you don't need one. It's easy to walk around. Might take a little while to get around. Or take public transit. And the cost, though, certainly is affordable. The cost of one ride, and that includes one transfer, is $2.90. So compare that to the price of gas and maintenance of a vehicle and insurance, and worrying about somebody sideswiping it, and washing the car, and changing the oil, and all kinds of stuff like that. Changing the wipers, it makes it affordable to get around. So momentarily we will be making our way into Manhattan, which is another island. So we're on a separate island right now that includes not just Brooklyn, but Queens is out here, and then also outside of New York City. So we're on a very long island. It's a description of the island. It also happens to be the name of the island. That's called Long Island, but typically when people refer to Long Island, they're not referring to New York City. They're referring to an area that's outside of New York City, further to the east of us. The Hamptons, for instance, Suffolk and Nassau counties. Hamptons are a little bit more of a wealthy area. There's a lighthouse down at the far end, out in Montauk, but summering in the Hamptons, it's for the rich and famous. But this is an island, and then Manhattan itself is an island as well. Doesn't always seem that way because there is a beach, actually a couple beaches that are part of Long Island. But Manhattan itself does have one beach, and perhaps we'll see that, I'll point it out. But it's an urban beach, so it's a different type of beach. You actually should not touch the water if you can avoid it. When it rains in particular, so the way that our sewage is treated, they have open sewage pits. And we don't want that to just flood. And so when a large rainfall is either predicted or it's starting to happen, they just discharge untreated wastewater into our waterways. But interestingly enough, our drinking water is great. It tastes a little bit extra special, not because of the wastewater though. Our water actually, the drinking water, comes from further upstate. We have protected sources, lakes, and tunnels that come down, and it's very pristine water. So we are in a tunnel, or maybe a portal to another dimension. Who knows? This is over 9,000 feet long, making it the longest continuous underwater tunnel in North America. Once we pop out at the end of this, we will be in Manhattan, specifically Lower Manhattan, not too far away from the World Trade Center. This tunnel did have a connection to the events of September 11, 2001. So certainly when that terrible tragedy had happened, shortly after the planes had struck the towers, everything shut down. All public transit stopped running, the subways stopped running, the roadways were closed off. This tunnel also was shut down. And so residents that were in the area, workers that were in the area, wanted to get out. While most people were trying to get out, there were some that were coming down to the World Trade Center. Some of them were the emergency service workers, firefighters, law enforcement, and other volunteers. There was one firefighter in particular that had just finished his shift, and he decided to come down here. He was actually going home out to Brooklyn, and still had all his gear, put it in his truck, and started to make his way back to the World Trade Center. Got to the end of the tunnel, or the beginning of the tunnel where we were earlier, and realized that he would not be able to drive through the tunnel, so took all his gear out, put it on his back, and started to make his way into the tunnel towards the World Trade Center. He unfortunately did not make it out, but his family later on started a foundation in his honor. His name was Stephen Siller, and they called it the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. What they do is that every September, the last Sunday of the month, they essentially replicate the journey that Stephen Siller did, making his way to the World Trade Center. They do it as a fundraiser. They raise funds and they help to support family members of fallen soldiers and other law enforcement who've lost their lives, helping to support with educational needs, with housing costs and things. So welcome to Manhattan. And Lower Manhattan, as I mentioned, this is where the city started back in the 1600s, at least from a European standpoint. This is where the Dutch originally settled, originally started a community called New Amsterdam, part of the Netherlands. And eventually the city expanded further north of us. And the English eventually came by, took the area over, and renamed it after the Duke of York, New York. That's where the name comes from. The financial district is also around us, although, especially after September 11th and other economic downturns, things have changed, and the buildings are still around, but oftentimes converted to residential. So a former bank, for instance, may still have that bank vault, but it's been converted to a mailroom, and the safety deposit boxes made into individual mailboxes. Coming up ahead of us, off to the left side, just past Burger King, is the new World Trade Center.
Oh, wow.
We will be having a stop coming up here.
Oh, okay.
Is the blue, so just below the tennis spire. It's the exact same height as the original Twin Tower. And all the buildings around here are all brand new. So originally there were 7 buildings, part of a 16-acre super site. The Twin Towers, they were the most prominent. Those are the ones that were struck by the planes themselves. The other 5 buildings, they were in that area, even though they themselves were not struck by the planes. The process of the collapse of the Twin Towers, the debris falling around the area, damaged them structurally. Number 7 actually came down later that day, and the others had to be torn down. And then afterwards, a lot of thoughts were had as to what should happen to the site. One thought was exactly what was before, bring it back again, the Twin Towers, bring that back. Another thought was maybe to make this entirely a memorial site. No buildings, just entirely memorial. Maybe a ghost-like structure reminiscent of what the Twin Towers used to be. Didn't happen either. And what ended up being was essentially a mix of the National 9/11 Memorial and then other new buildings. And the layouts also shifted a little bit. So here actually, the memorial, the waterfall that's part of the memorial itself, and the National 9/11 Memorial footprint with the the waterfalls are on the approximate site where the original Twin Towers used to be. So we're kind of on the south side of the memorial. So right across the way, that square that you can see, that's essentially where number 2, the South Tower, used to be. If you look back at number 1, if you imagine a tower just as tall as that, one here, and another just on the other side, that was the scale of the Twin Tower. The North Tower, we don't see it, but it's just beyond that. This is actually a museum. We're looking right now, though. You look back to number 1 to the right of it, that building that looks like it kind of got chopped off, about half the height of number 1, that's building number 7. And building-wise, that's it. 1, 3, 4, and 7. This new
So we have just begun our tour in New York, and we have stopped at the 9/11 Memorial. We've just learned some incredible history, and now we're taking a walk up to this fountain that we discussed. Oh my.
That's emotional.
The names of all of the victims are written all around here, and our tour guide explained to us that the reason that you'll never see the end of that bottom is to represent the loss that took place here. That's really incredible. Oh, it looks like this might be where they would have concerts, huh?
Yeah.
World Trade Center, y'all. This architecture is incredible. These are what we call skyscrapers. Incredible. And look, there's the subway, y'all.
That's something we don't ever see.
As we now have walked across the street, one of the buildings has been turned into a performing arts center. I'm not sure if you can see kind of inside the building there. And we're keeping walking, looking at the spires that are coming up and at this these statues that are here. This is quite the architecture. Quite the architecture. I mean, this is incredible, right? That's an octopus, and on the octopus are all of the animals. It's incredible. Just gorgeous.
Park West on the west side, 5th Avenue on the east side. It's 843 acres. There's all kinds of water features. There's a lake, there's a pond. That's what they're called, the lake, the pond. There's a reservoir. There's also a number of playgrounds. There's athletic fields as well. Coming up on the right side, if you look down the street, you'll catch a view of Times Square. But if you look in the park over here on the left side, you'll see a variety of pathways. And you notice the pathways all kind of curve around. You can also see the horses, horse drawn carriages. There's stable area, which was over there earlier. And some rock. That rock is actually our bedrock. It's called schist, S-C-H-I-S-T. It's a strong, durable rock, and it's mostly natural. Walking around earlier, I did see the Naked Cowboy. Anybody else see the Naked Cowboy? Jones, the Ghostbusters, the Wiz, Sex and the City. The two lines out front, we call them Patience and Fortitude. We had
looking for some New York style pizza. Here we are in Little Italy. Whoa. Hello. Okay, how does it go? Oh, I see it. 2 slice special, 7. Okay, let me read. Let me see.
But it's
From 10 to 5. So you can get 2 slices and
a drink.
no, just 2 slices. But look at all these different types. Well, how do I know? How do I know what type I want? You can go ahead. I have no idea what I want. Look at all of these different pizza pies. This is ridiculous. And I'm supposed to figure out what kind I want.
They have some chicken tenders. They have some cheese. They have
Oh my goodness. They don't have Dr. Pepper.
They don't. Oh, just trying to figure it out.
Still trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Then they have the thicker kind if you like. I never looked over here. Okay, there's a pineapple. There's a
They got one of those.
come just right here.
And
Barbecue, Hawaiian.
oh, is that just like yeah.
This one is
What's this one? This one of those?
So it took me like 10 minutes, but I finally figured out what pizzas I wanted. And now they're in the oven baking.
Oh, there we go.
One in cheese, photo slice. Is it? 2 cheese for
Here in Little Italy, this is what I decided to get. Margarita pizza and a pepperoni mushroom pizza. The slices are huge. And then a Coke. And that came out to be $14.40 for 2 slices of pizza and a Coke. We did a little bit more walking, a little shopping, and then it was time to be at LaGuardia Airport. Here is just a quick recap of New York. No, I'm no longer in New York. I am actually on my next cruise ship. I will be creating my vlog for that shortly. I'm on the next cruise, but I wanted to give you a recap of our New York adventure. This was a cruise that we picked on Princess. I'm sorry, let me say that better. This was a Princess excursion. Yes. And so we got it. I think the price, there was like a drop in price. It was like $179.99 at one point, but they dropped it down. I think we got it for like $129. So it included a 6-hour tour, kind of like Gilligan's Island. And then they drop you off at your particular airport. And they gave you 3 choices: Newark, LaGuardia, or JFK. So we were leaving out of LaGuardia. I liked the tour. I didn't have any complaints about the tour. I did have some observations though. Our guide was articulate. He was excellent. He was very thorough. Just when we were out walking about, he did not have like an amplifier on his voice, so it got hard to hear him at times. I know you probably noticed that in the video. So I couldn't hear him at certain points. Had to like run and get very close to him, make sure we were close by so we can hear what he was saying. Also, the Statue of Liberty, that part was shut down for maintenance, and I didn't like that because that was part of the tour, so we couldn't go there. Of course, I got some excellent pictures from the ship as we were pulling in, but that was a bummer that we didn't get a chance to go there as well. But I enjoyed that tour. I would highly recommend it. It was great. I hope you enjoyed our tour of New York. I plan to go back again. I'm from New York, but I had never been to the city. So this was a really great tour. And also, you know, get your transportation to the airport. I really thank you so much for enjoying and watching. Hopefully you have watched the whole series, and I will link those down in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you at the next adventure.